In recent weeks, Apple has found itself caught in the middle of an escalating economic storm, one that experts say could become the most serious crisis in the company's entire history. After Donald Trump officially confirmed a new 100% tariff on Chinese imports, the ripple effects began spreading across the American economy. But no company has been hit harder than Apple. According to Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal, Apple's leadership has already held several emergency meetings with shareholders to discuss worst-case scenarios if the trade war between Washington and Beijing drags on. Here's the biggest problem. More than 90% of Apple's manufacturing capacity is based in China, mainly through Foxconn, Pegatron, and Luxshare factories. With the new tariffs in place, Apple's production costs could rise by tens of percent, turning each new iPhone launch into a financial nightmare. Insiders claim that Tim Cook himself warned board members that if the situation doesn't change soon, Apple might even have to halt shipments to the US, an unthinkable scenario that could cause a stock market meltdown. To prevent that, Cook has personally stepped into the diplomatic battlefield, negotiating on two fronts, with both the White House and Chinese authorities. According to the Financial Times, Cook has already met twice with Trump administration officials, urging them to exempt Apple from the tariff list. He reportedly argued that Apple is not just a company, it's a symbol of American innovation and one of the nation's biggest taxpayers. But granting Apple an exemption would create a political chain reaction. Other corporations would demand the same treatment, putting Trump in a difficult spot. On one hand, he claims to protect American industry. On the other, his tariffs could cripple one of the country's biggest success stories. Sources close to the White House said Trump promised not to let Apple collapse, but no one knows what that promise really means. Options under discussion include temporary tariff relief for tech products, special export licenses, or relocating production to Mexico and Vietnam. In fact, Apple has already begun acting on the last option. According to Nikkei Asia, the company has accelerated the construction of new assembly lines in Ho Chi Minh City and Monterrey, Mexico, but experts warn this will take years to complete, and tariffs are already in effect now. Meanwhile, Beijing isn't backing down. Chinese state media have described U.S. tariffs as economic aggression and hinted at retaliatory measures targeting Apple, Tesla, and Boeing. According to the South China Morning Post, China is preparing higher taxes, restrictions on rare earth exports, and even slower customs clearances for U.S. companies. For Apple, that's catastrophic. China isn't just a production base, it's one of Apple's largest consumer markets. Losing access to it could be fatal. Global investors are already reacting. According to Morgan Stanley, a full-scale trade breakdown between the US and China could delay the release of new iPhones and MacBooks, trigger a worldwide chip shortage, and disrupt the entire electronic supply chain. Apple's crisis wouldn't just hurt itself. It could send shockwaves through companies like TSMC, LG, Samsung, and dozens of US startups that rely on Apple contracts. Behind the scenes, U.S. Congress is reportedly discussing emergency tax relief for tech companies affected by tariffs, but nothing concrete has emerged yet. For now, it's all political talk, while Trump doubles down on his message of bringing jobs home. Experts say, however, that's simply not realistic. The U.S. doesn't have the infrastructure or labor force to produce hundreds of millions of iPhones domestically. Inside Apple, tension is growing. Mid-level managers have been ordered to prepare detailed reports on potential financial losses under multiple trade scenarios. According to Reuters, some Foxconn facilities have already cut production and shifted workloads to reduce risk. At the same time, China may use Apple as leverage, hinting that if the U.S. doesn't ease tariffs, Beijing could slow down component exports or temporarily suspend operations at some plants. Analysts say Apple is caught between two fires. The U.S. wants manufacturing moved home. China wants to use Apple as a bargaining chip. Any misstep could be devastating. Former White House economist Lawrence Summers warned that if Washington doesn't back off, America may end up hurting itself more than China. Tim Cook now faces the toughest challenge of his career, trying to save Apple from becoming collateral damage in a geopolitical war. According to the New York Times, Cook has already sent personal letters to both the Trump administration and China's Ministry of Commerce, urging for calm and a rational approach to preserve global supply chains. But neither side seems willing to blink. China is doubling down on promoting Huawei and Xiaomi, brands that could quickly fill the gap if Apple falters. The world is watching closely, because if Apple truly stops shipments, it could trigger a global economic domino effect. Rising electronics prices, market crashes, chip shortages, and millions of job losses. Goldman Sachs estimates that every week of halted Apple production could cost the global economy over $5 billion. That's why some analysts call this moment an economic black swan, a rare and unpredictable event capable of reshaping global trade as we know it. Right now, time is working against Apple. Each day of delay means millions in losses and falling investor confidence. Insiders claim that the board is even considering forming a crisis task force to overhaul Apple's logistics strategy. If Tim Cook fails to find common ground between Washington and Beijing soon, the world could witness the biggest corporate crisis in the history of modern technology. A moment that reveals just how fragile our interconnected global economy truly is.